Welcome to the FLOM Leadership Podcast Series, generously sponsored by Cooper Vision. My name is Dr. Andrea Lasby, and I'm delighted to welcome you to today's episode on the Journey to Leadership, featuring Dr. Barbara Caffery. Thank you for joining us. For those that don't know Dr. Caffery, she is a fellow Canadian. Her storied career is much too long to cover completely because she has a unique background in both academia as well as private practice. She started her career at NECO, doing your optometry degree there, which is wonderful, and then went on to complete your Master of Science in biology, and then a diplomat in the cornea and contact lens and refractive technology section here at the Academy. And then you eventually did your PhD in vision science at the University of Waterloo as well in 2009. She is an active member in the Tear Film and Ocular Science Society and has published a vast amount of papers on cornea, contact lens, dry eye, especially in Sjogren's. She currently practices at Toronto Eye Centre. However, you may know her best from her time as the president of the Academy of Optometry and from 2021 to 2023. It is my distinct honor to welcome you, Dr. Caffery, to our podcast today. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
So I want to take you back. Let's start at the beginning of your career, after you graduated from optometry school. What led you to the Academy, getting your fellowship, and eventually diplomat as well?
So the Academy was easy for me. I went to school in Boston, as you mentioned, and during one of those 4 years, the Academy was held in Boston. Mm-hmm. So I had the privilege of walking down the halls and seeing people whose names were on the textbooks. We used to have textbooks, the textbooks that I had in my library. And it was so thrilling that I knew that was a space for me. And so that part was easy.
Yeah, wonderful. And then the drive to, go and do the diplomat, because of course that's a harder process.
Yes, so I considered it school, and one of the mottos I have in life is when you're in doubt, just go back to school. And I've done that many, many times, including now. Yeah. And so that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to get good at something specific, and contact lenses seemed the way to go.
Yeah. So how did your time in academia, doing your PhD, doing your master's, how did that shape your clinical practice?
So it made me a better observer. That was the important thing for me. So for example, when I did my master's in nutrition, biology, I was interested in the effect of food, what we eat is what we are, on dry eye disease. And the interesting part about that, of course, is that I found nothing in that area. And 34 years later, I did the TFOS lifestyle study, and indeed we found almost nothing again. So even though the microbiome, the gut microbiome, all of that is going to explode and we're going to learn more, at the moment, we don't know enough. Yeah. So those are the things that made me look harder at what I was doing in clinical practice.
Yeah, that curiosity in
Yes.
you. I love that. So now tell me about getting involved in the AAO. Here, obviously you rose up the ranks all the way to president, but how did you first get involved when you were younger?
I almost have no idea, except that I kept going to these meetings and meeting people. And somebody said, well, do you want to be on the membership committee? And I said, yes, I do. And so that's what I did. And then somebody said, oh, well, you did so well on membership. Do you want to join this committee, that committee? And I worked my way up. And one day, Mert Flom put me forward to the board. And there I was on the board. It was amazing to me.
Yeah, that networking, right?
Yes.
Just getting yourself out there. Meeting people?
Yes, and doing the job and doing it really well in a dedicated way. It makes a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of your time on the board, what learnings did you take away from that?
It was huge to be on that board. I learned many things. Lois Schoenberg taught me a lot. The thing that I remember most is my ability to listen. That was a big learning lesson. I learned to listen to everyone as we argued over an important topic, and there's lots of opinions on a board. Yes. And in the end, I was able to say, okay, everybody's spoken. I'm going to summarize what everybody has said, and then have everybody agree that that's what they said, and then we could make a decision from there. So I think that listening and going over what has been said in a clear way leads to consensus.
Yeah, so in terms of you talk about like some of the discussions that you had, and sometimes, being friendly with those you work with doesn't always mean you agree all the time.
Correct.
And so that can lead to conflict. So how did you manage that on a board? How did you step away and know that, hey, we're going to go out and get a drink later, we'll still get along, we want the same thing, maybe just different ways on how to get there? So how did you help manage that conflict as a chair of a board?
The most important thing was managing me. And that meant that I had to realize, as my mother often told me, it's not always about you, Barbara. And so the opinions that people had were not to be against me, they were what they believed was important. And sometimes that perspective actually did influence me to go in that direction, as long as we all understood each other. So if we could clearly state our point of view and decide after that, consensus was easy.
Yeah, no, that's great. So what advice would you give a younger emerging leader, just maybe graduating from optometry school in the first 10 years of their career? What advice would you give them as they want to maybe get more involved and step into more of leadership roles?
So mentorship, I think, is the important thing. I am doing some mentoring now, and it's just a delight. The thing that I've learned is that working in healthcare means that you get very lonely. There's a lot of pressure, you do a lot of giving, you do a lot of listening, you have to make decisions quickly, and then at the end of the day, you're tired, but no one except someone who does the same work can really understand the loneliness of it, even though you're talking all day. So having a mentor is extremely important. And of course, in my mentorship role, I'm always saying, well, get involved with the academy, because that's where you'll find things that are interesting to you, as well as like-minded people.
Yeah. And so taking that into consideration, you're talking about sometimes the loneliness of practice, which even if you're in a group setting, sometimes you can feel that way. How did you handle burnout in your career? Did you face it in your career? And how did you handle that and maybe get through or get past that?
Yes, I certainly did. And I realize now, of course, you don't have insight when you're extremely exhausted from your work, is that what was happening is I wasn't finding what I was doing interesting anymore. So if you don't find what you're doing interesting, go back to school and find something to be interested in that carries over into your work. And that's what I continually did, and that saved me.
Yeah, I think that's a common theme for sure. That's great. So in terms of our industry, it is changing rapidly all the time. So how has it been education that's led you to be more adaptable, or how would you encourage others to be more adaptable, to embrace change for the betterment of our patients?
So the important thing, I think, is to recognize how important we are. We do a service that no one else does. We know how to listen to patients. We know a lot about eyes and are able to translate that and help the patient to understand that. So understand that you are not going to be lost in this new world. But also understand that we really do have to be open to change. I don't know, the AI panel that was held taught us a lot about that. Let's not just hear the word or the letters AI and panic. Let's hear the words and say, oh wow, if I use this, I will have more time to talk to my patients. That is a huge change in what we do now, which is racing through every patient to get to the next one. So I think that's the important thing, knowing that you are so important and irreplaceable, and also knowing that things are going to change dramatically, and maybe take a stance on it. Is there a way that we as optometrists, especially as women optometrists, can find a way to influence governments or healthcare providers of some kind, how to do practice and not burn out, how to do practice and have joy in it, which is what we really need and what the patients need. And that's something to think about.
Those are really great points on adaptability and embracing change. So in terms of the qualities in a leader, you've worked alongside so many legends over the years, and you yourself are one. But what qualities in a leader have you seen, or do you value yourself that you think makes you or those around you quality leaders? Like, what has made you be like, that person, I would follow them anywhere?
Yes. For me, the thing that always impresses me is getting the job done. It's all very well to talk about things and have ideas, which is very important and creative. But in the end, you have to get the job done. And that involves two things. It involves you or me doing what we say we're going to do and finding ways to have others do things for us as we're doing these other jobs that allows us to free up and do the job we've said we've taken on that we're going to do. So those are the important things. That, getting it done, and two, listening to everybody else on the project to make sure everybody's moving in the same direction. Because sometimes, especially if you have a talking, powerful person around, the people that are helping you aren't necessarily heard. And if you always pause and make routine times to listen to everybody's voice, that will help everybody move forward.
Yeah, I think that's powerful because I think sometimes, leaders can have a tendency to have very strong opinions and just take that step back. I think that's a great message. So I want to step back just knowing a little bit about your career because I think this is really important for our viewers to hear. When you did your PhD, you did a lot of work on Sjogren's and you were working alongside other health care practitioners in hospitals like rheumatologists. So, you built some really powerful bridges there between optometry and other professions. How would you recommend other optometrists start building those sort of bridges in their local communities?
So one of the important things that we have to recognize is we are a part of the primary healthcare system. We are not integrated into it properly yet, but that integration goes one-on-one. So the first thing I would say is that every single eye exam you do, a report needs to be sent to the family doc or the nurse practitioner or whoever it is that's doing the primary care of that patient. And I don't mean a 2-page document. I mean clear, well-written. It can be a form, and then you fill in the parts that belong to that patient to tell that person what you're capable of. Because we are capable of a lot, and not everybody knows that. And once you establish that, once I got the rheumatology establishment, all the rheumatoologists were sending me, because where I work, that you can't get in to see an ophthalmologist. And so it was really important, and I became the person that the go-to person. So that's what I think works the best, quietly letting people know what you know, and then making sure that you follow up with that.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. So what's next for you?
Well, right now, I am back in school. When in doubt, I was heading for retirement, and I said, I'm not just going to sit home. So I am doing my MFA in creative writing and poetry, which is a real shift for my brain, and I can feel that when I sit down to do it. So it's wonderful, it's exciting. I really feel I've come a long way. I've done my first year, I'm going to do my second year, and it's been great.
Love that.
Yes.
Love that. So in terms of, obviously this is a leadership podcast series, any final thoughts that you have for the up and coming leaders in optometry, or just your final thoughts on the importance of leadership in our community? I
look at people like you and the young people that I work with and just say the future is so bright. You're so smart, you're so energetic, you're so capable. A lot of you can be leaders, or not everybody wants to be a leader. You can be someone who participates and lets someone else lead. That's perfectly fine. But the future is very bright, and optometry is going to rise and rise as we become more important in the primary care system, and that's a beautiful thing. I envy you, your future.
Oh, well, thank you. It was wonderful to have you here today. It has just been my honor to have you as part of our podcast series. So thank you for this great conversation, because I know our viewers will take away some tidbit from this that they can apply in their own careers.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, our audience, for joining us today for today's podcast. These presentations are brought to you by the FLOM Leadership Academy. If you're interested to learn more about the FLOM Leadership Academy's initiatives, you can go to aaopt.org and search FLOM. Thank you very much.